Hi, my name is Glenn Ambord. I'm talking to you from Salt Lake City on December the 10th at 4 a.m. in the morning. Isn't this crazy? About taxes. I'm not here to tell you to stop filing or to stop paying your taxes. I'm here to give you an advanced preview of a book by John Benson, who with me taught seminars on taxes some 20 years ago, and over a period of time the government didn't like what we were teaching, so they put us away at the tender mercies of the government in prison, for him for 6 years and me for 9 years. For some of you that'll be a turnoff and you won't want to proceed any further, and that's okay. But you ought to know what we were teaching and what we got hemmed up for. We taught people that they could pay the taxes that the law required, and then if they were denied, or if they didn't like the taxes, the IRS laws required, regulations required that they file an administrative claim for refund with the IRS before they brought their issues into the courts. You can't go into court directly about a tax matter until you've gone through the IRS first. So we taught people that they could do that, and if they were denied at the IRS, they could go into the courts and litigate their issues. The government said that was a crime. They admitted they didn't lose any money. Everybody paid the taxes, the normal taxes. Nobody lied or cheated on their income tax return and so forth. But they said the very fact that we taught this all across the country made it a crime. They said if we'd have taught 2 or 3 people to do it as sort of a test case, then it wouldn't have been a crime. But because we taught about 1,200 in public seminars across the country, that was a crime. Now, it's important to know that we invited IRS agents publicly, free of charge, to come to our course, get all our materials and so forth. And we wrote to the Commissioner of Internal Revenue Service, we wrote to the Secretary of the Treasury, the Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, who are in charge of taxes in the House of Representatives, the Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, 2 or 3 other senators from, two senators from the state of Nevada where I was living, and the 1 congresswoman. There was only 1 congressperson at that time, and a couple of other high officials in the Internal Revenue Service to let them know what we were doing. So we were very open about what we were doing and teaching people how to go through this process. But they said that was a crime. And one of the reasons I think it was a crime, because they said that after we had taught we had taught 1,200 people, they said, but they received over 100,000 of the administrative claims for refund with our theory of taxation on those claims, so they thought we were trying to shut the IRS down. Well, we had no idea that there were over 100,000 people. We only taught 1,200, but I guess for every one we taught, there was 10 or 12 other people that they shared our information with, so that's how good news spreads. Anyway, we're hoping that same good news will spread here about taxes. John has a book that he is going to publish in January. He's asked me to edit it because he has gone basically blind from doing his research in service of his country. He is classified legally blind by the Veterans Administration. We're both vets, and the Veterans Administration gave him a computer that's designed for people that are blind or almost blind. He has a little bit of a tunnel vision in his right eye, not very much, and he has serious cardiovascular disease and diabetes and so forth. Anyway, he's 77, I'll be 72 in February, so we're kind of getting up there. And so we want to pass along our knowledge so that somebody else doesn't have to repeat it, what we've gone through researching for a combined, probably 50 years between the two of us. John for about 30 some odd years, me for a little over 20 years. And we're trying to put this information out there in a way that you can understand it. The book should be out in January. I'm in the last stages of editing it for him, and I go over there, and he can't get around very well, so I go over there and prepare meals for him sometimes, and do his shopping, and take the trash out and so forth, and see if we can't build his health up so he can see the fruits of his labor. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, here's the deal. The name of his book is, or the tentative title, we've got to make sure that we can copyright and all that, is Taxation by Misrepresentation: The Truth About Taxes in Plain English. And what the goal of this book is to tell you what the real basis of the income tax code and the income tax laws are. The information in this book is stunning. It's astonishing. You will not find it in any other book or tape or lecture or anywhere in the world. You won't find it in any law school. You won't find it with any attorney, any judge, any court case or anything like that, because John has spent time going back to find the very basis of the tax laws. And in 1977, there was a Supreme Court case out of this very state that I'm living in right now, Utah, called GM Leasing versus the United States. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And what happened was that GM Leasing had some tax problems, and so the IRS found one of their vehicles on some private property, and they went on the private property without a search warrant and snatched the vehicle without the search warrant. The GM Leasing folks took it all the way up to the Supreme Court and said, hey, they violated our right to privacy. They came on our land without a search warrant and grabbed our goods. And the result of that case is not as important as one of the aspects of it that apply to taxes. The government argued that what the GM Leasing folks did is they sued the government agents, the IRS agents that came on their land. And what they argued before the Supreme Court, what the government argued was, even if they were guilty of violating the law, they acted in good faith based upon what they called standard service procedures. They used the word service for the Internal Revenue Service. They complied with standard service procedures, which are based upon Murray's Lessee versus Hoboken Land and Improvement Company. That's an 1856 Supreme Court case that had to do with what due process was required for the government to grab money from people without a court proceeding and just do it administratively. And the Supreme Court in Murray's Lessee, for the first time in the history of our country, since it had its constitution, decided to investigate what the term due process of law meant. Pardon me. Got a little phlegm in my throat. What the term due process of law meant in terms of tax laws, and they came up with some very interesting conclusions. And basically, what they said was that the government can go ahead and use administrative processes to collect revenue, as long as they do it in accord with the due process that was in place when our Constitution was founded and the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause was put into effect in 1791, the year it was ratified. And so, with that in mind, they said that you have to. The IRS has to. They didn't say IRS because they didn't have the IRS at the time. They said the government has to use administrative processes that are no different in principle from the processes used by the King of England in 1791 to collect his revenue, because that's what our founders understood due process to be in revenue matters, was the due process used by the King at that time, because our founders were Englishmen at the time. So they cited a number of authorities, and in books that are now hard to get. They were current at the time, 1856, but they're mostly out of print by now. So it took John and me over a year to find those books and get copies of them and so forth. And we've read all of them. Well, I don't know that we've read every book that they cited, but we read the major ones that the Supreme Court relied on in that case, and found out what the English processes were. And those English processes are exactly the same I guess my computer's wanting to sleep. I'll have to give it an energy drink or something. Those processes are reflected in the GM leasing argument by the government when they said, hey, our people, our IRS agents are following the standard service procedures based upon Murray's lessee, meaning that our service procedures are based upon the old English processes that the king used way back when, and our people followed them to the letter, and so they shouldn't be penalized by the GM leasing folks for violating their right to privacy. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that those processes are reflected in the IRS today, but no one knows those because, hey, no one's go back and no one can even find the books. We took the time to do that. John did first, and then I followed in his footsteps. So this book is going to be coming out in January, and I want to give a little brief introduction to it, not to steal its thunder, but to give you a little idea of what the book is going to do, and I think you're going to find it just astonishing, and you'll understand why the Internal Revenue Code is the way it is. And I won't give it away right now because I'm going to do another video. This is just kind of an introduction. So do stay tuned to these to this channel, and I'll have more videos coming up. I hope I can do a better job. This is only my first real substantive video after coming out of prison, and I'm behind the 8-ball in technology, so I hope you put up with my little errors all the time. And I look forward to talking to you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.